In my mind and my understanding, you're one of the few pediatricians throughout this time who've actually been looking at and realizing what's important. How do you keep children healthy? How do you make children healthy? By looking at food, diet, supplementation, looking at their life holistically.
The brain, the greatest creation. The brain grows the fastest in those first 7 years.
Absolutely.
It's 90% grown by the 7th year.
Yep.
So you pick the time in the life that you can have the most influence. You grow a healthy brain now, and you've influenced that precious child for the next 80 years. And that's what's so beautiful about pediatrics.
That junk food was this, micronutrient devoid stuff, very quickly prepared, packaged, preservative heavy, chemical laden. It's that it is very specifically, maybe in some cases purposely, but nonetheless very specifically damaging.
Oh, it is.
And just share a few ways. I mean, not just the microbiome, but how else is this damaging to young bodies?
I call it the naughty list. I give my patients a naughty list. High in sugar, low in fiber, high in the artificial chemicals. If the word is so long you can't pronounce it, you don't give it. Preload to prevent. Preload early with the tools you can imprint in your child to prevent illnesses later on. And that's what we're going to do today.
Today, we are thrilled to feature Dr. Bill Sears, a trailblazer in pediatric health with over 40 years at the forefront of child care and parenting, a Harvard-trained pediatrician and author of over 30 groundbreaking books. Dr. Sears merges deep clinical knowledge with a relatable touch that wins over families nationwide. And known for making complex health concepts accessible, he's a very familiar face on TV and a respected voice in medical conferences, advocating for a nurturing approach to parenting. So folks, grab your favorite note-taking device because Dr. Sears is about to share his wisdom on raising thriving children, grounded in his belief that informed, empathetic parenting is the cornerstone of lifelong health. But before we go into that, obviously, every day we look forward to hearing top-line thoughts by our expert host, Dr. Murray Clarke. Dr. Clarke, how excited are we to have Dr. Sears with us today?
One of my heroes. Very, very pleased to have you here, Dr. Sears. Yeah.
Thank you. My honor to be here, Murray.
I wanted to just follow that time period that you've been practicing as a pediatrician. And just one study that I think we mentioned earlier in another series was over the last 40 years in America, the number of children suffering from illness has gone from 1 in 50, 40 years ago, to 1 in 5 today. Journal of American Medicine study in 2007. In my mind and my understanding, you're one of the few pediatricians throughout this time who've actually been looking at and realizing what's important. How do you keep children healthy? How do you make children healthy? By looking at food, diet, supplementation, looking at their life holistically. This is what you have done before anybody was doing it in America, and why I'm so pleased to have you here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. And we call it, as you mentioned, the statistics of health right now, I call it preload to prevent. Preload early with the tools you can imprint in your child to prevent illnesses later on. And that's what we're going to do today.
Very good.
Well, and we're always talking about this concept, especially as you can appreciate, because you've in many instances you are classically trained, but you've evolved throughout your clinical career over to what we now refer to as functional medicine. And everyone at the table here knows that there's no miracle to implementing natural nutrition, holistic, ways of doing things, because it's just the body is the miracle. Incorporating these ingredients, these nutritional insights, this data, if you will, information into a body, there's no miracle to that. The miracle is the body gets to work better on its own, right?
And you just mentioned a great thought. The human body is a miracle. the human body is the greatest creation ever made. And as a humble male, I think the female body is the greatest creation ever made.
Amen.
And I've been at almost 1,000 births.
Yep.
And the pregnancy and growing a baby inside a mommy's body, and that precious little big cheek, little fat cheek baby comes out, it's a miracle.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
How many did you bring into the world in your time?
Oh, well, let's see. I've caught now. When I was on a TV program, and I bragged about I delivered 4 of our 8 babies, and my wife says, "Cut. Men catch babies, women deliver babies."
Yes.
So I probably maybe about 100. So
That's great, Bill. And when in talking about nature and its inherent beauty and quality, that is what we're talking about in these first 7 years. When a child comes into this earth, pure, created by the mother, father, has that whole potential life ahead of them.
exactly.
Then we're looking at what do we do to keep them on the right track? Because I think in my experience, half the time, problems in childhood come from an obstruction that's put in the way. If we just do the right things, nature takes care of it, and that child remains healthy, grows everything properly.
Exactly, Dr. Murray. You mentioned 7 years.
Yep.
See, the brain, the greatest creation, the brain grows the fastest in those first 7 years.
Absolutely.
It's 90% grown
Yep.
by the 7th year.
Yep.
So you pick the time in the life that you can have the most influence.
Exactly.
You grow a healthy brain now, and you've influenced that precious child for the next 80 years. And that's what's so beautiful about pediatrics.
Yep.
If I can make some changes in a new parent and a baby's life from day one on,
Yep.
I've influenced the health of that child for the next 90 years.
For
maybe.
their life. For their life.
It's beautiful.
And what would you say is one of the most impactful things to that end? Would you say breastfeeding? Because we know you're a huge advocate
Yes.
of breastfeeding, being naturally birthed. Because as we will talk about a little bit later on in the show, the microbiome and the brain-gut connection, that starts with natural birthing and breastfeeding, does it not?
It does start with breastfeeding, Bryce. And my wife, Martha, has logged in a little over 19 years of breastfeeding our 8 children, including an adopted baby and a child with Down syndrome. So I've learned on the job. In fact, our books are written on the job. I would watch and learn and watch how Martha did things. And see, human milk, wow, the marvels of human milk. And when I see patients in my office, I always see my patients prenatally to be sure they decide to breastfeed.
Why? What's so important about it?
And-
What's in there?
Well, Bryce, it's just amazing. First of all, in many cultures, breast milk is known as white blood because it's live. It's alive. And the stuff first of all, is healthy fats. Healthy fats.
Yep. For the brain.
And for the brain. And see, the brain is 60% fat. And the way I get my patients to remember that, I said, "You're a fathead.
Right.
You're a fathead, Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
You're a fathead, Bryce. You're a fathead, Murray, and I'm a fathead. And you're growing a little fathead.
Yep.
So what does your little fathead need? Fats.
Fats and oils.
And what is the greatest source of fats? The breast milk is 40 to 50% fat. And what's even more fascinating is the healthiest fats in the brain, the smartest fats in the brain, DHA, EPA, are also the top smart fats in breast milk.
Absolutely.
So it's a perfect match. And another thing, I love watching babies breastfeed. And there's a beautiful Japanese term called umami. Umami, we don't have an English word for it, but umami is a savory mouthfeel. We would call it yummy and yum.
Right.
And you watch a baby breastfeed, and it's like, And and like it's, ooh, mommy.
Yeah.
Ooh, mommy. And it has that mouthfeel, that
Yeah.
And then you watch them drift off to sleep as if what's in mother's milk is a natural sleep inducer as they grin off to sleep.
Yeah.
And what people don't realize is breastfeeding is not only good for baby, it's good for mommy. Because when that little sucker gets on mommy and gets that beautiful milk, mommy gets a surge of her hormones.
Sure.
Prolactin and oxytocin.
It's a win-win two-way street, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's like the mother gives the baby her milk, the baby gives back to the mother, hey, Mom, I'll help you relax. And they're called the mother's intuition hormones, prolactin and oxytocin. So it's really a mutual giving, we call it.
And Bill, could you talk a little bit about the importance of the colostrum in the milk, that colostrum that comes in those first few days before the milk even really appears?
Super milk.
Super milk, exactly.
Super milk is what it is.
Yeah, it's
I mean, there's just no formula in the world that even come close to it.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about the microbiome later, but it's just perfect food for that. Yeah. But it's just if you had the designer of human milk, it perfectly fits the brain. That's what's so beautiful about it.
So what people at home need to understand here is that we've got North America's #1 pediatrician in the room. We've got North America's, if not the world's, #1 formulator in the room. Here's what I want to drive home. The message is, if and when you can, naturally birth and breastfeed, because that's going to establish the best success, not only in the first 7 years, but later on in life. But what I want to get out of you at this point in time, Dr. Murray, if somebody can't eat the perfect diet, and we'll come back to you sort of for that while they're carrying or breastfeeding, that perfect diet doesn't exist. This is the very reason why there are formulas out there, not only for the children, but for moms.
Sure.
You mentioned DHA. Let's nerd out here for a second. Docosahexaenoic acid, EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid. Why? These are important, and also they are in supplement form in the case that mom can't get it out of her diet.
Sure. Well, if we look at a baby and a birth, obviously begins at conception. That's when the baby starts growing. So 2003 study in the Journal of Pediatrics, they had two groups of mothers. One, they gave cod liver oil, which obviously really high in DHA, the important brain fatty acid. The other group, they gave corn oil, and then they followed their children from birth until 5 years of age. What they found was the group of children with the mothers who took the cod liver oil, by the age of 5, 4 IQ points higher than the other group. So beautifully illustrates, nature will take care of things if you give the right food. You just give the right clean nutrient, it will go to the right place in the body, and in this case, the brain. And you have 4 IQ points just from cod liver oil.
Yes,
And there we have it right there in PubMed. There it is. Supplementing
DHA.
with very long chain fatty acids during pregnancy and lactation augments child's IQ at 4 years of age.
That's right. And what's interesting is, good science and good sense go together. If the smartest fat in the brain is DHA, and you give babies more DHA to eat, they're going to get smarter. And what's fantastic, and I learned this from Dr. Michael Crawford in Asia, or in Europe. We did a speaking tour together, and he's one of the top neuroscientists in Europe. And I said, Michael, tell me about mothers feeding babies when they're in the womb and they're growing a baby. He said, and he used the phrase, powered by maternal nutrition. Powered by maternal nutrition.
That's good.
And that says it all. And what's fascinating, which I didn't know, is the baby in the womb does what's called biomagnifies. Biomagnifies means that the blood, the DHA level of the mother's blood on the mother's side of the placenta, when the little sucker, when it goes through the baby, the baby biomagnifies that, so 4 times, 4 times what's in the mother's blood gets into the baby's brain. And that's why it's so important for mothers during pregnancy to eat right, because the little sucker gets the DHA from the mother, so baby has a sufficiency, mom has an insufficiency of DHA, and that's why she needs to take much more supplements. And we feel that there's some new studies showing that a deficiency of DHA for the mom could be a trigger for postpartum depression.
Absolutely. Many studies have shown that now, Bill. You know, that deficiency and a correlation with postpartum depression.
Yeah.
So it just means the baby took what it needed during pregnancy, but the mom got low.
You got it. And so I give the moms during pregnancy, I call it my 5S diet real quick. A smoothie.
Yep.
Sip on smoothie, because there's baby's taking up room. You can't be a gorger.
Yeah.
So smoothie.
Yep.
Salmon. Oh, I'm going to talk about salmon later.
You're a big salmon fan.
Omega-3
Salmon.
DHA.
Big salmon fan.
Salads, a nice hot salad. Snacking. You become a grazer when you're pregnant. The rule of 2s, I call it. Eat twice as often, eat half as much, and chew twice as long.
Yeah.
And then supplements based on science. So when the mothers in my practice do the 5S diet, they feel so much better.
You know, I wonder, and I'm just going to take a guess that a lot of parents, caregivers at home, hearing you guys say, the experts in the field, that DHA, EPA, omega is so important. It's going to raise your IQ. It's going to have healthier fat head, as you call it. They're like, how do I know what my scores or levels are? Well, we're good friends and know the industry experts on testing. And I think we all agree, Dr. Bill Harris, very simple at-home little pinprick test. If you want to know what your levels are, which are directly imparting when you're breastfeeding onto your newly born child, finger stick test looking at red blood cell membrane saturation of omega-3s. Easy, very relatively inexpensive at-home test. You guys would agree?
Absolutely.
And we do that in our office. In fact, Dr. Bill Harris was a guest at our home, and I call him one of my favorite fat scientists. And so that's what it is. And basically, we do that in the office in all of our patients, because there are different absorbers. See, eating, it's not what you put in your mouth, it's what the gut absorbs. And you have high absorbers and low absorbers. And women tend to be a little higher absorbers. Maybe that's why they're smarter. I don't know. But omega-3 index, so we give them the usual amount of, say, 1,000 milligrams of the DHA, and then 6 weeks later, do the finger stick. And then you can measure the level. It needs to be over 8%. And then you can adjust your dosage accordingly.
Throughout the pregnancy, throughout the whole
pregnancy,
time.
yes.
And post-pregnancy.
And postpartum, too.
Yeah. Great.
How about introducing solid foods? I know you talk a lot about, this whole concept as to how to do it, when to do it. I mean, both of you are prolific in this advice. Can we unpack that, starting with you, Dr. Sears?
You just hit one of the biggest mistakes in medicine, is what we used to start babies on.
Yeah, let's go with the formula concept.
Let's just get into the brain for a minute. It's common sense, all right? You're feeding a little fathead.
The brain is growing faster than the rest
fastest
of
the life of the baby, right then. Rice cereal, no fat. That rice cereal.
What was that all about? What happened?
Just carbohydrate.
When I looked at when we were first having babies years ago, and I looked at that, I said, it reminds me of one of my favorite movies, Dumb and Dumber. Rice cereal. So, our favorite first food is avocado.
Beautiful fats.
Avocado, fat. So fat it's the most nutrient-dense fruit you can use. It's fat, vitamin, minerals, and it has a mouthfeel that is that umami again, similar to breast milk.
And not too sweet like fruits.
That's not too sweet. And so we start with avocado around 6 months, and we look for the cue on the baby. We call it mooching. When baby's watching mommy eat, when baby's reaching for the spoon. When baby gives you the cue called mooching, that's the time. And it's usually 5 to 7 months in that range. And then, so avocados, in other words, sweet potatoes. But this will surprise you. Salmon at 7 months.
Wow, that early.
Yep. Salmon at 7 months.
No risk of developing any intolerances
I have a little, throughout my office, I have what I call healthy reminders. In fact, our viewers can go to our website, askdrsears.com, and download all these things.
Yep.
Healthy reminders. Salmon says, I'm a smart food.
DHA, omega-3 fatty acids.
So we start salmon,
Yeah.
wild salmon, at 7 months. And when parents in my office say, what? Why salmon? What I do is I say, okay, let's imagine the 10 top nutrients in your baby's brain, the 10 top nutrients. And then I show them a little page here, the 10 top nutrients in a fillet of wild salmon. And they say, wow, there's no food at all on the planet that has 10 of the top nutrients in the brain in a little fillet of wild salmon.
So that's where we go to when it comes to
it.
food. And naturally, and they're going to love it if they don't, or if it's hard to get it to them. This is where the mastery and genius around supplementation comes in, right? So you can't, in some instances, I believe, eat yourself into therapeutic range. What is a mom to do, for example, if they've been to the Ask Sears website and they've punched in salmon and they've tried salmon with their child and they spit it out, and it takes, what, 7 or 8 times to introduce to them before they latch on?
Keep going.
You keep going. You keep pushing. What do?
Cod liver oil is the oldest adage, probably the original vitamin supplement in the world. The cod liver oil. Traditions in many countries, their parents giving their babies cod liver oil. It was because they knew inherently that omega-3 DHA is in there. So you've got salmon, you've got cod liver oil. There's some algae oils now that have a high DHA. But simply, you can get the oil in concentrated form and just add it to their foods.
Yeah.
Put it on the avocado.
Sure.
Add it to it. Just supplement.
Therapeutic.
We call it sneakies.
Sneakies.
Yeah. Sneak it in. You'll never know what's in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so, we promised everyone we'd get into the microbiome. So from in utero to breastfeeding to introduction of certain foods early on, what is all this doing insofar as maintaining and establishing and supporting a healthy microbiome, and why do parents care? Why do new moms and dads care that their kids have not just healthy poops? We're not talking about regularity. And you wrote the book on it, right? You wrote the book on Dr. Poo. And it was so important that you wrote a guide, not just a guide to healthy, regular poop with a stool, sampling visual in here, but also an establishment of the microbiome. Tell us all about this. Why is this important?
Well, Bryce, you just mentioned the magic word in medicine right now, microbiome. Microbiome is the word for tiny gut bugs, tiny bugs, tiny bacteria in your gut. So trillions of tiny bacteria reside in the lower intestine, the large intestine, and the lining of the large intestine is sort of like a shag carpet. So the microbiome resides in the nooks and crannies of that shag carpet. Now, there are trillions of them. And in return for free food and a warm place to live, the microbiome makes medicines for you.
Yep.
So you have an internal pharmacy inside.
Right.
It's a microbiome pharmacy. They make medicines my favorite medicine they make is serotonin. They help make serotonin.
The feel-good hormone.
The happy hormone. They make it in the gut and they ship it up to the brain. And see, the head brain and the gut brain are connected.
Yep.
That's why the gut's called the second brain for a reason.
Yep.
And so the head brain say, hey, gut brain microbiome, how you doing down there? And they say, hey, head brain, we're moving along fine down here as long as you don't stress me out up here.
Right.
See, so there's that gut brain, head brain connection. And the microbiome, and you know what the microbiome's favorite food is?
I would guess fiber?
It's, well, for a baby, I want to go back to your opener.
Oh, colostrum.
Breast milk.
Breast milk, of course.
The microbiome loves breast milk.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, there's and to get my patients, I always give my patients little things to remember. And there's an ingredient in breast milk called the microbiota. M-O-M. Mom. The microbiota. It's the nutrient, like the probiotic that feeds the gut bugs. Mm-hmm. So can you imagine when baby is breastfeeding, those trillions of little bacteria, there are actually 3 pounds of them. If you would take all these bacteria and put them, 3 pounds, that all these little trillions of gut bugs say, here comes mom. Here comes mom.
Yep.
Mom's nursing.
Because they got to eat too.
Yeah, pardon?
Because they got to eat too.
They got to eat too. And basically the microbiome, they live on our leftovers.
Right.
You know, they live on our leftovers. The fiber that we can't digest,
Helps
the microbiome
the
can.
prebiotic. To put it, what you just said in perspective, Bill, so the human body has 30 trillion cells, and in our microbiome, there's 38 trillion bacteria. So we're outnumbered. If we don't look after them, they're not going to look after us.
But we're buggy.
Right? Yeah. But really, the importance, it cannot be overstated. The microbiome is...
So we talked a little bit about fats, a little bit the microbiome. Before we end with the microbiome, though, there are all kinds of products on the market now claiming to be the best probiotic. I think one thing we should drive home for moms out there is to understand this notion that there are select, well-evidenced, studied strains and species that confer health benefit in certain instances. For example, somebody's got irritable bowel syndrome, which is, maybe there's a caveat there anyway as it relates to pigeonhole diagnoses, which we can appreciate or not. But that's a whole other story. The idea is for irritable bowel syndrome, there may be a certain class of microbiome enhancing bacteria that help. In other cases, antibiotic-associated diarrhea or C. difficile, or any of these instances, there might be certain classifications of good bacteria that can help, have health benefits. That doesn't mean there is the best probiotic or the best strain or species. It's only that which will confer health benefit in a certain... So what, if any, of strains and species are out there? There's a question for both of you. Should moms be thinking about taking not only for themselves, perhaps even after recent delivery, but also maybe supplementing with their infant children for best microbiome?
Well, I give them little tips. Bifidus, I call them Biff. Biff and lacto.
Okay?
So lactobacillus and bifidus are usually the categories that babies need the most. And what was interesting, Bryce, my patients tell me they suffer from supplement confusion. They go online, they look at these crazy TV commercials and all, which have no science behind them. So I give them a little 1-minute thing. I say, okay, here's how you choose a supplement. First of all, do you need it?
Right.
All right. Do you need it? All right. So, do you eat it? And I say, do you eat 2 fistfuls of wild salmon every day? Does your baby eat 2 baby fistfuls of wild salmon every day? So do you need it? No, Dr. Bell, we're vegan. We don't like salmon. Okay. You need it, but you don't eat it. Therefore, you must take it.
Sure.
Oh, that makes sense. I need it, but I don't eat it, therefore I must take it. And then they say, what do I take? And supplements based on science. And that's why I keep coming. My favorite is still DHA because that's a supplement that has the most research behind it.
Safety, efficacy is everything when we're dealing with the first 7 years.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
there are very safe and effective, on indication, probiotic strains and species. Child Life blends with them. There's a wonderful review in the Journal of Nutrients published in 2021, Probiotics in Pediatrics. And it's a review and a very practical guide. I encourage listeners and viewers to go and check this out. Very comprehensive. Again, it talks about what we're talking about, which is strain species indication. But what did you formulate with in the Child Life line insofar as it goes? With
No, I completely agree with Bill. So the Bifidobacterium infantis, number 1 for babies.
Yeah.
The lactobacillus, good for babies and mothers. And the mother has to realize what she's taking is going to eventually get passed on to the baby. So those are the 2 primary strains, Bifidobacterium infantis, the lactobacillus. But what I did also in the Child Life one is combine that with colostrum.
Oh, brilliant.
So then they get the whole enchilada.
How long can we be taking colostrum after, one is breastfed? I mean, it's an it's got some good evidence behind it, doesn't it, as an immune enhancing ingredient?
Well, we had experience with that with our number 8 child is adopted. And Martha, I thought, just because she's adopted doesn't mean she should be deprived. So Martha still could make a little bit, but so we had in my office 35 milk moms, we called them.
35?
35. Moms
Wow.
would come in, and new moms would come in and say, oh, Dr. Bill, I'm leaking all the time. Really? Step in the other room. We have breast pumps.
There's some excess
and
here.
snacks. And so how would you like to be a milk mom? So I would take home, oftentimes when they come in on day 1, this yellow, thick colostrum and give it to our adopted baby for the first week or 2 of life. And when you look at the colostrum, it's orangey, yellow, thick. It's just, you just look at it and say, wow, that's got to be full of good stuff.
The best, really. And it's really why, if you look at nature, why did nature design that the colostrum come in the first 2 days before even the milk that's feeding the child comes in?
That's right.
Why the colostrum is so important, because it's actually the first food that the baby gets coming into this world.
Exactly. And see, what you're doing, you're also growing the baby's gut garden. See, I think the brain is like a garden. The gut lining's like a garden. And you feed and fertilize the garden.
Ecosystem.
So the colostrum is starting to plant and fertilize the baby's gut garden. So when the milk comes in, it can help digest. And when the baby starts getting foreign stuff in the mouth that shouldn't, it's going to close the gaps a bit. And so there's just, as Murray mentioned, Dr. Mother Nature, the great designer, and we have all this of the human body, especially those early years. It's just magnificent. And see, children, we have a little Sears family motto, children are our most treasured possession. Our mission is to nurture and protect them. But we don't treasure how we feed them as much. See, we need to feed them real healthy food. And it's called shaping young tastes. See, that's the thing, you're programming. And if you just give that baby and child up to 7 years, your program's on 7 years, just real foods, nothing out of a box or can, real foods, the brain's taste center and the taste receptors of the tongue, they communicate like, because I grew up with this, therefore the brain likes. So just real foods. Then when they get out, and I've studied this in my office. I use my office as kind of a laboratory.
That's why they call it a practice.
And when you just real food, a real food raised baby, a pure baby. When they get out into the real world of junk food, and they will, they take junk food and say, Mommy, it gives me yucky tummy.
Yeah.
Yucky tummy is the term they used because their gut brain was not used to the taste and the gut feel of junk food, so they feel yucky tummy.
The brain and the taste was educated properly.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it can discern
Educate
good
them.
from bad.
Yeah.
And and I think we should clear something up for moms, whether they're new or maybe experienced with a few of their own already. It used to be thought, I think, by and large, that junk food was this, micronutrient devoid stuff. Very quickly prepared, packaged, preservative heavy, chemical laden. It's not that it's just micronutrient deficient. It's that it is very specifically, maybe in some cases purposely, but nonetheless very specifically damaging.
Oh, it is.
And just share a few ways. I mean, not just the microbiome, but how else is this damaging to young bodies?
I call it the naughty list.
Yeah.
I give my patients a naughty list. Added sugar,
Yep.
high in sugar, low in fiber, double fault, high in the artificial chemicals, okay, and the sorbates and if the word is so long you can't pronounce it, you don't give it.
Maybe think
but I
twice.
give them the naughty list, and what's interesting, I said, what's fascinating, is how much kids will understand. So I want to tell you a little story about I was giving a talk similar to this to a first grade class, and I call junk food sticky stuff, and I show them pictures how it sticks to the it keeps your pharmacy closed.
Yep.
I show them how the body has a natural pharmacy in the endothelium. I show them medicine bottles. I said when you put sticky stuff in your mouth, you get sticky stuff on top of your medicine bottles and your pharmacy doesn't open. So I get a call from a mom the next day. So Dr. Bill, I got to tell you how your talk with my 6-year-old stuck. Your sticky stuff talk. My husband put all the kids in the van that night and took them down to a burger joint. Let's call it Sticky's Burgers, okay? The 6-year-old says to Daddy, Daddy, we can't put that sticky stuff in our mouth or we'll get sticky stuff over the tops of our medicine bottles in our pharmacy inside, and we can't make our own medicine.
You weren't kidding. Kids actually get it.
6 years of age, they get it. So I tell parents, take what you think your children understand and double it.
Yep.
That makes perfect sense. And so we've talked about DHA, EPA, colostrum, supporting the microbiome, fiber, introduction of foods. Salmon's your favorite. Avocado's high up on the list. What are moms and infants particularly deficient in beyond some of those ingredients? Are we worried about the letter vitamins? Are we worried about certain micronutrients, for example, magnesium in the soil? What do they need to know about supplementing their diet?
I think recently, and this is in the last 10, 12 years, I think there's been like 200,000 studies around the world on vitamin D alone.
Right.
And what we've discovered is that there really is a worldwide deficiency in vitamin D in both adults and children. And it's the most important, one of the most important, if not the most important. It's the sunshine vitamin. Right? That's what allows us to live on this planet is the sun. And the sun makes vitamin D. So essential, critical vitamin, especially in childhood. I think that's why, American Academy of Pediatricians, like 8 years ago, came out saying vitamin D from birth. Give your baby vitamin D from birth. So really from birth, from, that first year importance, vitamin D, I would say. And then you have the 2 Ds. You have the vitamin D and the DHA. You've got it covered.
And Murray, I couldn't agree more that vitamin D deficiency is big. We do vitamin D deficiency along with the omega-3 index.
On the finger prick,
Yeah, a little finger stick.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, and I say you should have a level above 60. What's in with the old-fashioned RDA levels, they're kind of what to keep alive, and that's about it.
Bare minimum.
Look, when you see an RDA, double it. But basically, try to get a level above 50 or 60. And and because so many parents now have a sun phobia.
Big.
Sun phobia.
Big, yeah.
And
Yeah.
and one of my best I give prescriptions like this every day, where patients will ask me something, and I'll draw on my prescription pad, go outside and play.
Right.
Your child suffers from NDD, nature's deficit disorder.
That's great.
Go outside and play,
Yeah.
and you know, take that shirt off.
Yeah.
Get 15 or 20 minutes
Yeah.
of sunshine,
Yeah.
say late morning or so,
Yep.
and get a little bit, not burnt,
Mm-hmm.
but a little bit tan, and if you explain it to parents, they get it. So yes, I agree. The vitamin D deficiency is a big.
And I think it's important for the parent to understand how important the sun is, because if the parent is a little phobic of the sun, the child is going to be.
Exactly.
You know,
A lot of
and they need to
translates.
lead by example.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
parents, and actually parents suffer from the sitting disease now too.
Yeah.
So go outside and play.
Byproduct of our modern age, isn't it? We get a lot of questions from listeners and viewers of the series. We encourage everyone to submit their questions in the comments below on the YouTube channel. One that's very frequently asked, this one came via Instagram. Lisa says, what are your recommendations for an expectant mother to best prepare for breastfeeding? And how long do you suggest mothers breastfeed to maximize benefits for the baby?
All right. How long? As long as you and baby enjoy it. As long as you can.
Theoretically,
Now,
into 3, 4 years old?
American
Or?
Academy of Pediatrics, which is fantastic because they're rather conservative. 2 years for the American Academy of Pediatrics. But I say as long and as often as you and baby enjoy it, because Dr. Mary mentioned the studies are there.
Yep.
The longer you breastfeed and the more often you breastfeed, the smarter the baby is. See, so that's one thing. And so I see all my, first of all, to breastfeed, do your homework before birth. Right? We have a book called the Breastfeeding Book. Talk to friends, read about, and you'll be, wow, that's in my milk, I want to do it. Secondly, in the hospital, be sure you have a lactation consultant. And
So
all hospitals have it, that the minute that little sucker comes, and the ideal is on a healthy birth, is come right out of mama, cheek to breast, we call it. Cheek to breast, and the little baby smells mommy's milk and starts nursing right away. But you want to have a trained, certified lactation consultant called IBCLC, International Board of Certified Lactation Consultants. See the mother the first day right there to teach baby proper latch.
Right.
Because some babies need to be taught how to suck. They just don't. Babies should suck areolas, not nipples. The nipples is just something to guide. But a lactation consultant, and then thirdly, have a nursing station at home. A nursing station is your mommy rest. A nice rocking chair in front of a window with your favorite snacks, music playing, and then you give. This is a time. This is a time for a mother to rest.
Yep.
You're doing the most important job in the world right now, nursing that little precious human being. So let everybody else do that. And but one of the things too is fathers. Get fathers involved, because mothers wear out. I remember Martha saying one day, "I don't have time to take a shower. My baby needs me so much." I said, "Martha, your baby needs a happy, rested mom. You go rest. I will father nurse." And I said that term on national television one time.
What is that?
Father nurse?
You got my attention.
Yeah, okay. Well, I said, okay, we don't have the usual nice things to nurse, but what do fathers have? A deep voice, a hairy chest. So I would put the baby in the, call it the neck nestle, and drape my cheekbones over the top of the head, because babies hear with the vibration of their skull bones too. And I'd say, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, my little baby. You know, father nursing.
Interesting.
You know, the warm fuzzy on your chest. And so fathers, give mom a break.
There's a role.
Yeah.
There's a role to play.
And then the other thing, perhaps Bill can also suggest what mama could be eating while she's breastfeeding to make
Those
that,
snacks you alluded
to make that milk the best, the optimum nutrition. Right?
I tell them how to make a smoothie. You know, you're breastfeeding, or you're sipping on smoothie all day long, and DHA, EPA
Same,
are great little supplements, even to put in the smoothie.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the DHA comes back even in the mother's diet for the baby all the way through.
Absolutely. Well, and here's one for you, Dr. Murray, and it's a hot topic on our Facebook group, as you know. When is the ideal time? We covered a little bit of this on the show, so you can rewind if you didn't catch it. But when is the best time to introduce solid foods to infants? And what are your thoughts on the practice of specific types of foods at specific moments in time? You cover this in your book, actually.
No, I think, Bill mentioned earlier, somewhere in that 5 to 7 months when the child is really interested, when they can hold their head by itself straight, that's when you start thinking about introducing the food.
Yeah.
And I think, if viewers take only one thing away from today, I think Dr. Bill's tip on avocado as the intro food is the winner by far, and can change the course of not just the child's development, but their taste palette.
Absolutely.
When they start with carbohydrates, that's when the sweet starts coming in and becoming a problem later. So the avocado, and then following that, completely agree. You cannot overemphasize the importance of the DHA,
right?
Which is either through the fish, cod liver oil, supplement if you need to. But the DHA is the number one.
So here's what we learned today. We learned that the answer to your questions are most likely within one of the 30 books that Dr. Bill Sears has authored, and certainly as Dr. Murray Clarke has authored as well. It's probably going to be within the content of this video series. And as we wrap up, we want to say how grateful we are for you to join us in person. We know how busy you are. You're a legacy in the industry, both of medicine, pediatrics, but also holistic health and wellness. So thank you for sharing all of your knowledge.
Thank you, Bryce. And what sharing, we all have what I call the helper's high. That I'll go to bed tonight drifting off with a high dose of what I call the helper's high, because some mom or dad or grandparent, someone out there, we've changed their life for the better. And that baby's life for the better because of something they heard on our program.
Yeah, I bet. And I want to remind folks, as I pull it up on screen again here, if you have a question or you want to learn more, it's askdrsears.com. And we want you to ask us your questions. We have a multitude of guests coming on the show. We're excited to have. In the future, we're asking you to come back. That's for darn sure, and hope you accept that invitation. But just comment below on the YouTube channel, ask away, and you're very likely to get that question answered in a future segment or episode. But what we learned today is not only the mommy of the avocado and the 7-month-old introduction of salmon, DHA, EPA. We got to get that into our bodies as moms and new parents and children. There's a supplement line Child Life has that if you feel that you need to supplement your diet, these are incredibly tasty, savory, easily bioavailable ingredients and best studied ingredients on the planet in the Child Life line. That's widely available at retail. So check out the Child Life line as well. And the microbiome. Let's not forget the brain-gut connection, right? We talked about that today and supporting that, not just with probiotics, but with the good food that supports these things in the first place. Really important.
And just personally, Bryce, I would like to thank Dr. Bill for coming onto the program. For me, in the many years that I was learning to become a pediatrician, I read all of your works and have the greatest respect for what you've done and accomplished, but also presented to the world of parenting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, guys, until next time, this is The First 7 Years. We'll see you soon.